The cloud forest, amigos, is known as one of the most biodiverse forests in the world by meters square on the canopy. Maybe you have seen this today as you were walking, right? On the trees, they look completely loaded on plants. So, I want to tell you why is this place known as a cloud forest. So we see why is it known as a tropical cloud forest, and then see what is it as we start moving on, okay? Look in this here. I have the library with me all the time. If we see a Costa Rica map, which we are a very small country, only around 51,000 kilometers square territory, but we have close around to 5% of the world's biodiversity, which is quite high for such a small region, right? This happens because so many microclimates we have all over Costa Rica. As you drive, you can see everything changes in a amount of 1 hour, 30 minutes even, right? So all the Caribbean here in Costa Rica is what we know as a tropical rainforest, with very heavy rains, hot and humid environment. So this happens on the Caribbean side right there, because the trade winds, those clouds that sometimes we can see moving, it's coming from the Caribbean going to the Pacific, like that, from east to west. So what these clouds are doing, they're dropping very heavy rains along the Caribbean coast, making a very hot and humid environment. Rains all year, and around 7 meters of rain a year there. So that's a lot of precipitation, right?
7 meters.
7 meters, that's a lot of rain. All year rains in the Caribbean. When these clouds keep on moving, they hit the continental divide right here. It's a line of mountains. Costa Rica was finished formed 3.5 million years ago, and was by volcano activity mainly. So this area right here belongs to the fire belt, Pacific fire belt, and all of this has around 5 active volcanoes, which in Costa Rica, you know how many volcanic cones we have? No idea. 112 volcanic cones in Costa Rica. This is incredible.
112?
112. It's incredible. We're like a little nuclear bomb, right? So there's a lot of mountains among these cordilleras, these mountain ranges that are volcanoes but not active, right? They're not active. So when these clouds move higher in elevations in Costa Rica or around here. But this place, Monteverde, it's only around 1,842 meters level, which is about 5,000 feet. So when the clouds are coming like that and they're going up on the mountain, they go through the forest. Why is it a tropical cloud forest? We're close to the equator line, very close to equator line. So for example, people in New Zealand will say they have a cloud forest, and they do, but it's not a tropical cloud forest. Tropical cloud forests are close to the equator line, so they do have some in Africa too, close to the equator as well. But when these clouds are moving through, they're going up on the trees, and they're leaving all of this humidity among the branches. So this is one of the reasons why you find so much plant biodiversity on the plants, on the trees. If you see this branch right there, just around here, all of that I'm pointing right there, you can see it's loaded on mosses and different plants. And this is a little example. As we're gonna move up, you're gonna see a lot more. Some trees here easily can store up to 5,000 plants, individual plants on the top, even 50 to 100 species on one tree, which we call one tree equals to an ecosystem in the cloud forest. So it's amazing the biodiversity you can find up there. Maybe you heard before we have close around to 500 species of orchids in the cloud forest.
Yes.
It's one of the most biodiverse places with orchid population in the world, which is very high. What the big problem sometimes to find is because they are
up in the
there,
trees,
right? So it was one of the places in the world biologists could affirm to science that plants are able to use root system to just hold and leaves to absorb. So not necessarily roots to parasite. The roots are just holding up there. This is why they call them epiphytes, which epi means over, phyte means plant. Plants over each other, not
plants
necessarily
over
parasite.
each other.
Exactly.
Epiphyte.
Epiphyte. So it's not destroying or not killing our trees. How we see this? Well, if you go to those plants and you look at the root system, you see the roots are not going in the bark. So it's not absorbing the water from or the glucose that these trees will have. It's just supporting over there. As the clouds are moving along, they're bringing salt minerals, water, and nutrients that all of these plants will take. Mosses are known as epiphyte too. It's not a plant, but it's known as epiphyte organism. What they do is just storing, holding on the top. Their leaves absorb water. When they don't need water, it's just like 1 gram of mosses can store close to around 4 grams of water. Incredible, right? When mosses don't need much more water, they let go, and the let go water is great for orchids and other plants living on the treetops. Orchids, lichens, ferns, which we have up there too, right? So it's all interacting together. It's all like a cycle. Let's say, imagine last year we had a girl from University of Georgia, and her name is Jessica. Jessica was studying here soil on the canopy layer. And this sounds
soil on the canopy layer.
On the canopy layer. This sounds amazing, right?
From the decomposition of the leaves.
From the decomposition of the leaves. So if you see horizontal, big, thick branches here, they're going to have a very thick layer of mosses. Under those mosses, you're going to find soil from all things decomposing over there. So she was looking and seeing how nutritive is this soil for all the other plants that can live on the top. So this is one of the reasons why the cloud forest is very different to a rainforest, very different to a dry forest. Because if we look down here, Costa Rica has a dry forest, which is the only deciduous forest in Costa Rica. You know, deciduous forest.
Yeah.
So once a year, they're not going to have leaves on the trees. Here in Monteverde, we have some deciduous trees because they grow quickly. They're soft wooden trees. But the hardwood trees, like the Jaws tree, this giant tree here, with thin leaves, it's an evergreen tree. So all year we'll have leaves. It's never going to be without leaves. So in the dry forest, for 5 months, we have a dry season, so no rain. By not having rain on 5 months, the trees need to do hibernation. It's similar when it's winter up north. They're dropping all the leaves, they're hibernating. So it's similar to what they do here, but with a lot of heat. It's hot and dry, we can say. Here is cold and humid most of the time. So if we see the difference on this, on a real image of how this works, this is I use this because it uses real pictures. So sometimes it helps very well to see how the ecosystem really looks like, right? This is a tropical rainforest. Can you see over there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Swamps, a lot of mosquitoes, vines, not much mosses on the trees, not much epiphytes. This is how the cloud forest should look most of the time.
Why don't you have as many epiphytes in a rainforest? And I noticed that this has much more moss. And why is that?
This is because in this place the clouds are going up high. So what they get is just the dense rainfall.
Right.
So that this rainfall is going through the branches and falling. You can have lichens around the trees and little thin moss. The difference here is since it's higher, the clouds go through. So by the clouds going through, they're bringing the salt minerals and nutrients in with it that they're just giving or nutrieting to them.
What
so it's easy.
Salt
minerals or nutrients is because it's not, when you see the clouds, it's not just water. Inside the cloud, you have salt minerals and nutrients in with this, which is a small particles, super small particles. And this is what gives nutrition to all of the plants that lives on the top of the trees.
And so the reason why there's no moss in a tropical rainforest is because the rain doesn't have nutrients?
Because the rainfall or the very heavy rains doesn't stay as much as the masses would be. For example, if we stop here on a regular day and we just stop here and you have the clouds moving and we start walking along, you're gonna touch your hair and suddenly it's completely humid. If you go to the rainforest,
they have more access to water.
Easier access in the cloud.
Even with the amount of rain.
Even with the amount of rain. The other different fact is the elevation. When the rainforest is lower lands, rains super hard and then stops. But it's so hot that the water on the trees evaporizes very quickly. So it doesn't have as much of time for the plants to absorb this water from the rain or like to use it. So that since here is a little colder, the water can stays on the branches and all of the other plants among this area will be using the nutrients that they can storage up there. If you see here, this is a dry forest as well, so completely different, right? It's the same place, the picture we took in.
Wow.
Rainy season, dry season. So this is Guanacaste in Costa Rica. We get a lot of forest fires down there, but not here, right? So a lot of forest fires down here during the dry season.
We have that same problem in Arizona up north. We have a lot of tall trees, but it's so dry that fires will start and they'll go for weeks.
Ooh, yeah, sometimes it's very interesting because we're here and it's cloudy. And you look down the coast and there's a forest fire and we're getting rain here, but the wind doesn't make it all the way to the Pacific. And not necessarily all year around we are going to have winds from Caribbean to Pacific. When it's rainy season, we have winds forming from Pacific towards the Caribbean too. So that's why the rainy season makes Guanacaste stay green, because there's abundant rain in that other side. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions so far?
This is the rat tail Oncidium.
There is
It's bobbing.
so many species of orchids here. Well, one of the guys that works with us, his name is Gabriel Barbosa.
I did find an epidendrum in bloom while we were looking for the quetzal. Not very easy. It's windy there. That's the flower. It's the flower is got a red tongue. It's hard to see. So you just see the red tongue. There's a bridge here where I'm told we can see epiphytes up close. There's the branch, and then there's the moss around it, and there would be soil between the moss and the branch. Here's a close-up of some epiphytes on this tree. It goes all the way down to the ground. There's another tree off that bridge, and actually you can zoom in and see orchids. And looks like there are more orchids up there. So this is a close-up since this is actually very high up the tree. It's the bottom of the tree. It's all the way down in the ground. Down there. Here's some orchids that I can see way out on the tree. And in Monteverde, the biomass of epiphytic plants is larger than the biomass of terrestrials. So here's a fallen branch inside Monteverde covered in orchids. We have another branch next to it, also covered in orchids. This is
there is one flowering. They are around 500.
Looks like an epidendrum of some kind. And then this is an Oncidium of some kind.
Okay, we have another species here.
That's right. That type of pseudobulb. And this looks like a either well, this is either like a pleurothallid or Lepanthes of some kind. I'm not good enough to know the difference.
Lepanthes are usually a bit smaller and more some red, but much smaller.
Much smaller than that.
Those,
That's probably a pleurothallid. I mean, it looks like it has kind of flowers.
Just remember that tree on the trail I've seen some Lepanthes.
So it's very windy in Monteverde, and it's even windier up here at the top of the mountain on the Continental Divide, and we're in what's called the elfin forest. The trees are not as tall here because the winds are so strong, and so they're shorter and stronger. Looking out toward the Caribbean side. Up in the high-wind elfin forest, I found this subrillid flora, one of the trees, and you can really see the wind blowing hard here at the top of the mountain in Monteverde. Now I'm standing on the Continental Divide and looking out over on the Pacific side, and you can see that bay and the Nicoya Peninsula as I pan onto the mountain. You can see how the clouds end right as they're clearing the top of the mountain. was it once forest? You can see that area down below on the Pacific side is a lot drier than on the Caribbean side and up here on the mountain, which gets moisture from the clouds. So here is the Orchid of Monteverde.
What do they call it? An epi something.
I don't know that they called it anything. I asked him what the name was. He said, I don't know. It's the Orchid of Monteverde. It's everywhere. And so we found it here at the Continental Divide.
Plant, leaves.
Alright, so this is one of the few terrestrial orchids that can be found in the Monteverde cloud forest. And here's the leaves down here. And I don't recognize this at all, so we're going to have to look up the name later.
Yeah, we'll look it up later.
This is the yellow version of that orange orchid that we saw before. It's got similar leaves, and it's not very in, and it's got an open flower. Let's see if we can get a good shot of the flower.
So they can get
Yeah, if you put your hand in there. Thank you. There we go. This is known as the people orchid, and it is in a little garden area at the entrance to the Monteverde Nature Reserve.
cloud forest.
Cloud forest. There's another one that's in that little garden area. And here's the entire growth. So in this little area is orchids that they found in the Monteverde cloud forest. And they have made it easier for people to find them. Okay, so this is currently being pollinated right here. Get you, Mr. Wasp?
Stingless wasp.
Stingless wasp. So this is this used to be Maxillaria and it's been changed to something else, but I'm told that these will have white flowers and they smell really nice. So this little guy right here smells like candy. It's really sweet. Too bad nobody can smell through a video. And there's more of them right here in bloom. Here's a very large, I'm going to guess it's a Pleurothallus. I don't see anything open on it. It's got some buds. And then there's a very large bushy orchid right here. Might have some, I don't think there's anything. And then over here is an epidendrum of some kind. It has this flower right there. Put our hand behind it so we can get a better view. And then, oh, here's another phallid of some kind. And here we have, I have no idea what orchid this is. It's getting really washed out. Here's its growth habitat. The wind coming in. The seasonal, very windy here. Not expected that it be so windy in the cloud forest. So this is growing. Let me brush this. You can see growth habitat of that. So you can get a good up close of the flowers. There's another up here. Flowers on it. Orchids on the stream seem like they have tags, but when you look at the tags, they're like blank. They just have little numbers. Like this one says 36. So possibly if there was some guide, you could figure out which one it was. Over here is a, looks like a Lapanthes in bloom. Let's see if I can get it. There. And then there's another, possibly another Lapanthes in bloom next to it. That one. So, hoping I'll be able to find some IDs for these later.